These are the 21 psychological hacks you can use in your own brain to just be brilliant and change the world. Let's go. What is up? My name's Cody Warner. I'm an eternal optimist, and my only goal is that just a little bit of that optimism rubs off on you. Let's get this thing. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Was scrolling on Twitter yesterday and found a thread by a guy named Joshua Bonatal. Let's dive in. Only 7% of the people who started this book ever finished it, by the way, which is insane. Number 21. If you care about being thought credible and intelligent, don't use complex language where simpler language will do. Jonathan, I have to say, in this thread, you did not follow that. So maybe you just don't care about being thought credible and intelligent, which is there's something to be said for that. But the more you can simplify a sentence, the more you can just be direct in how you talk. Talk like you're talking to a 5th grader. That's what I like to say. Maybe 4th or 3rd even. Maybe my 7-year-old. Just make it simple. Number 20, law of least effort. If there are several ways of achieving the same goal, people will eventually gravitate to the least demanding course of action. Laziness is built deep into our nature. If you are like me, you did not need to hear that. That is just so intrinsically true. I am looking for the most efficient way to do every single thing I've ever done in my life, and I still am to this day, and I will never stop doing that. There's a sort of fact of life that some of the most successful people in the world are some of the laziest because they were able to figure out how to become extremely successful with as minimal amount of effort as possible. So when they started applying max effort, efficiency was so insane that they were making leaps and bounds above what it would have been had they just been applying max effort in the wrong direction. 19, confidence is determined by the coherence of the best story you can tell from the evidence at hand. You got to keep that in mind when someone sounds very certain about a thing they're telling you. I think that the thing for me is just try to always be super upfront. Hey, this is my level of certainty on this thing. It's like 67%, Narrative, fallacy. What does fallacy mean? Define. A mistaken belief, especially one that is based on an unsound argument. Okay, fallacy defined. Flawed stories of the past shape our views of the world and our expectations for the future. Just let that one hit you like a ton of bricks. Flawed stories. Not the real stories, the flawed stories are shaping our view of the world and our expectation for the future. I mean, you can use that to your advantage. The stories we're telling ourselves, they're flawed one way or the other. What if you flaw them over in a way that serves you? That helps you create the type of reality in the future that you want to create. Maybe those flaws are going to be a little bit better than the ones that really send you into a negative downward spiral. You know what I'm saying? Number 17, outcome bias. We are prone to blame decision makers for good decisions that worked out badly and give too little credit to successful moves that appear obvious only after the fact. That works in the other way too. If you're the decision maker, you just gotta, people are gonna judge you for stuff. Stuff's gonna happen and you're gonna be like, well, it didn't work out, but it was a good decision. Still, I stand behind the decision. I'm bummed about how it worked out. How do we move forward and fix this thing? When we are uncomfortable and unhappy, we lose touch with our intuition. And when we're in a good mood, we become more intuitive and creative, but also less vigilant and more prone to logical errors. I'd say my mood lately, I'm 85% in a good mood, which means that is my ability to think through problems logically and without error, is that being affected? Honestly, probably not. This is the fallacy playing out before your eyes right now. We just got to keep it in mind. That's something that could happen. Number 15, the idea that the future is unpredictable is undermined every day by the ease with which the past is explained. So you're telling me the future is unpredictable, and you got to remember that. Don't let the fact that it's easy to talk about the past and just explain it away. Don't let that fact get in the way of the fact that the future is still very unpredictable. I think I got it. Did you get it? I think I got it. Number 14, theory-induced blindness. Once you have accepted the theory and used it as a tool in your thinking, it is extraordinarily difficult to notice its flaws. They call that theory, that has a name. It's theory-induced blindness. That's crazy. That is us, literally that is just us constantly all the time. When you believe something and you operate by it, it's really hard to see the flaws in it. It's really hard to see how it's messed up. Like, that's just us. Like, that's just me right now. I'm just sitting here talking to a camera. I'm just realizing that that's me. Number 13, let's move on. Possibility effect. Rare outcomes are overweighted relativity. What are we doing here? Rare outcomes are overweighted relative to their probability. I have no freaking idea what that means, Jonathan. You should have made that one simpler for me. I'm just kidding. I'm not mad at you. It's my job to figure out what this means. You see an outcome that is actually very hard to create, and you think, oh, that's possible. And because it's being talked about and it kind of seems more possible, then it seems like it could happen a lot more easily than it could actually happen. So just keep in mind, keep in mind the effort it's going to take to create rare outcomes. Number 12, certainty effect. Outcomes that are almost certain, 95%, are given less weight than their probability justifies. In other words, let's say you see someone start a business, they build it to $1 million a year, and you're like, I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to build it to $1 million a year. The chances of you building a business, maybe let's say to $100,000 a year, are much more likely, but it's going to be easier for you to think, no, I'm hitting the million. But I mean, let's just back it up. Like, either business is legit. Let's go. Who cares? Let's go. Just keep going. Just grind it. Just crush it. I don't know if that was a takeaway from that one, but that's what I took. Squarespace sponsored the video. That's where you can build your website on the internet. It's like a tool. It's just like a website. It is a website in and of itself where you can just go and pick a great template. And then within like half a day, you have a professional looking website built off of a template that you had no idea how to code, but now it just exists out in the world. That's what Squarespace is, okay? You can host your portfolio there, show people the stuff that you make and that you do and that you write. You can have a blog so that you can top of SEO, get your business, get your personal brand out there. You can sell stuff in a shop right on your website. You can schedule appointments with clients right there on the website. Squarespace is everything you need to build a personal brand on a website on the internet. If you want to try it out, go to squarespace.com/CodyWarner, get a free trial, and then when you're ready to buy, use the code CodyWarner to get 10% off your first purchase. Number 11, people expect to have stronger emotional reactions to an outcome produced by action than to the same outcome produced by inaction. People produced by inaction. I'm not sure how that one helps us, but it does. Expectations-wise, if someone takes an action, they're going to have a stronger they're going to feel more as a result of that action than if the same exact thing happened, but they had done nothing. So you can probably use that in sales and business and like in your own life. Like basically, we are men of action. Lies do not become us. I hope that you're a Princess Bride fan like me. Let's move on to 10. Focusing illusion. Nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you are thinking about it. Oh, man. You can really that's why you can fall into the spiral of worrying so easy, because when you're thinking about it, it starts to become like the most terrifying, most important thing in the world because you're thinking about it. Man, what a good one to know. Availability heuristic. What does heuristic mean? Enabling someone to discover or learn something for themselves. Heuristic. We judge the frequency of an event by the ease with which instances come to mind. A reliable way of making people believe in falsehoods is frequent repetition, because familiarity is not easily distinguished from the truth. Whoa. That one, I just got it. It just clicked. So it's easy to believe lies if you see the lies happening often in front of you. Let's keep that in mind for sure. Number 8, halo effect. Stories of business success and failure consistently exaggerate the impact of leadership style and management practices on firm outcomes. Thus, their message is rarely useful. That is a data-driven approach if I've ever heard of it. What I'm hearing is like when something goes well in business, when you have one of those rare outcomes and like you're like, man, that looks amazing, it's often overemphasized like what someone did to make that thing happen, when in reality, a lot of the stuff that happened like just sort of happened. And yeah, I'm sure some of it had to do with leadership and the actions that were made, but a lot of it didn't. Main takeaway there is like, just keep going. If something bad happens, something good happens, it's all right. We're just going to keep going. Number 7, hindsight bias. Your inability to reconstruct past beliefs will inevitably cause you to underestimate the extent to which you were surprised by past events. You were surprised by past events. So because it's hard to remember stuff, you're going to underestimate. You're going to think it's less likely that you were surprised by what happened in the past. simply because you can't remember what happened in the past. So the takeaway is like, stuff's going to surprise you in the future, and that's okay. Don't worry about if you feel surprised by stuff in the future. You were very surprised in the past too. It's just you're having a hard time remembering. I think that I got that one right. I don't know. 6, intuitive heuristics, learning things for themselves. When faced with a difficult question, we often answer an easier one instead, usually without noticing the substitution. I mean, it's a lot easier for me to see that happening, I think, in my life and like how people talk to me. But I am 100% positive that I do that to people every time I talk to them. Just like, oh, I'll just answer an easier question so that I don't have to think too deeply and too hard about a question that I don't really know the answer to. Now we're getting to the game changers. 5, higher income is associated with a reduced ability to enjoy the small pleasures of life. So like, don't get me wrong. I want you to make a bunch of money, you know? I don't think I just want you to realize that it gets harder to appreciate the small things in life when you get super focused on the creation of money. 4, we are far too willing to reject the belief that much of what we see in life is random. That one's kind of foundational to a bunch of these ones up there. Like sometimes things just happen. There is no reason. It's so easy to attribute a reason to things. Number 3, you will often find that knowing little makes it easier to fit everything you know into a coherent pattern. So if everything makes sense to you, it's probably because you don't know enough. 2, luck plays a large role in every story of success. It's almost always easy to identify a small change in the story that would have turned a remarkable achievement into a mediocre outcome. Yeah, there's a lot of luck. There's a lot of luck that goes into there. Just keep going. That's the only thing we can do. We can just keep going. That's literally it. Number 1, it is much easier, as well as far more enjoyable, to identify and label the mistakes of others than to recognize our own. Let's take some time. Let's look inward this week. Let's see where we're making the mistakes. Let's try to stop making them. Let's apologize to the people we made them to. And let's get it going. Let's keep it moving. Everyone go follow Joshua on Twitter. I have a feeling he does these sort of threads often. And yeah, see you in the next one.